Yeah, isn't that interesting how such a simple question ought to be a simple answer? And in many ways it is. But I would say in the modern world, we've almost lost sight of what money is because we tend to conflate money and debt and credit all into one amalgamation. That's can be disorienting. And of course, we have political money in this world. So I break money down in political money and market money. They're the two types of money. And they both work to an extent. You can go buy stuff with either one in a perfect world, but there's a huge difference. And so to me, money is simply the commodity that the marketplace decides is best used to facilitate trade so that people don't have to resort to barter. We all know the problems with barter societies were poor societies. MMTers don't even admit that barter societies ever existed. So that's, I think, interesting. They think money was a creation of the state from day one. But nonetheless, we understand from Menger and Mises that money ought to be simply the most saleable commodity in any geographic area, and that we can determine that it has value in marginal utility. Menger gave us that the more money you have, the less each additional unit of money is worth, and that money has value because it had a pre-existing use as a commodity. That's what Mises says in his regression theory. And that solves this question of like, this circular question. Well, why does money have value? Because you can buy stuff with it. Well, why can you buy stuff with it? Because it has value. So Mises said we had to go back and solve that. We had to go back to its earlier use as a commodity. I don't think people should fall into the trap of saying that it has inherent value. Your gold has inherent value. So I don't think that's correct at all. Money is as subjective as any other economic good. And we as human beings imbue it with value. And so right now we all want $1 million or $10 million or whatever we want, or 10 million Bitcoins. But that's just because we assign it value. It doesn't have inherent value. If you're starving alone on an island and dying of thirst, piles of gold would be basically valueless to you. So we have to understand that value is contextual and subjective at all times. So Mises and Menger basically solved the problem of what money is in economics and made it a conceptual thing for us. There was obviously a big debate when Bitcoin was a baby back in the early 2010s about whether it satisfied Mises's regression theorem, whether we could go back and find a pre-existing use for it as a commodity. And I think there are lots of ways you can approach that. Much smarter people than me have written big, lengthy articles about that and say, well, it's tied up in the mathematics of it, the algorithm, it's tied up in the tech, it's tied up in the immutability, it's tied up in the novelty. You know, people forget that Bitcoin was novel at the beginning. Oh my gosh, I just traded 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza, got it delivered. Whoops, they should have done that. But at any rate, I don't think we should get hung up on that, because at the end of the day, money is what the market says is money. That's so important. None of us know the future. None of us individually can decide that the future of money is Bitcoin. Oh, the future of money is gold because fiat currencies are going to collapse and everyone's going to go back to what they knew. And this and that. That's not up to any of us individually. That's a collective decision by markets, first and foremost. And that you can't overcome markets ultimately. Political money, which is my term for fiat money, created by government treasuries in coordination generally with their central banks, is an attempt to impose money by law, by fiat. And ultimately, I would argue that is a fool's game, and that the political pressures on political money will be too great to have it maintain its value. Because when we know what money is, and then we look back at Menger and Mises and say, well, what's its purpose? Its purpose is to help us overcome barter and to transmit value through time and space, give us a store of value. There's some very interesting questions I'm sure we'll get to with respect to gold versus Bitcoin on that question. So a medium of exchange, a store of value, pre-existing use, arises naturally on the marketplace as a commodity. These to me are the big elements of what money is. But today, Robert, we have shadow banking. Sounds sinister, but that's just like Rocket Mortgage. Rocket Mortgage is the biggest shadow banking institution on earth. It's not sinister. How much money have they created in effect? You know, they've made it possible for a lot of people to buy houses. So that kind of looks like money. You get into M3, you get into M4, broader aspects of money. Our treasury bills today, almost a form of money, because they've enjoyed such great status and they've been that liquid for that long. What is money today has become very, very clouded. And because our whole money system is based on debt, as opposed to a shiny rock sitting there that's melted down into a coin with no counterparty, we blur the distinction between money and debt enormously in society. And so as a result of all this, you and I, we might be geeks and we like to go back and read books that Mises wrote in 1912, but we shouldn't be blaming normies for not wanting to have this conceptual or cerebral exercise. They just want to have some money, preferably more of it from their job. And they sure would like it if it covered their bills. And that gets harder and harder when gas is $4, or when bacon, you go to Walmart and look at a pound of bacon for us carnivore people, just unbelievable. And so average people may not be interested in the discussion that we're having, this definitional discussion. But I'll tell you what, they sense that something's wrong with the dollar. And I think that the fact that they sense that is going to have not just economic, but political ramifications.
Yes, many excellent points there. I guess we could say that market money is an emergent socioeconomic phenomenon, not decided by any group or individuals alone.
That I like.
Right? Yeah, it's like a social consensus, something kind of like language, right? It just sort of emerges. No one decides what words come into use or go out of use in language, just like no one decides which money is, or which monetary good is promoted as money. I think this is to Menger's point, if I recall correctly, that every good exhibits some degree of moneyness, right? Certain things are more saleable than other things, and the thing that is the most saleable is what we traditionally call money.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.